hi, ladies, 317. Welcome to our conversation. Freedom Talks, thanks for being here and tuning in. I'm excited. I think Chris has told everybody who I am. I'm Talia Black. I'm her therapist, but I'm not supposed to say that because that's client confidentiality, but we got it. But anyway, Chris asked me to come. I am a marriage and family therapist, and I'm a licensed professional counselor. I don't exactly know how I grew up to be that because I definitely didn't want to grow up to be a therapist. But it's actually been kind of cool. So I specialize in trauma and addiction. I specialize in family systems, which I'm sure you guys all come from super healthy, regulated, wonderful families with zero issues, right? Yeah, me too. Okay, cool, me too. So part of what Chris had kind of asked me to come talk about was trauma, its impact, kind of how it works, and how to fight it. But I'm pretty casual in my conversations. I like interaction. So if you just stare at me, then I'm like, I don't think this is going well, Talia. You should stop talking. And I'm like, okay, no. So like head nods are good. If you like, yeah, that connects with me, I got it. Like, yeah, that definitely hits home for me. I think we're gonna leave place for questions at the end, so that if anybody has questions, I'll see if I can answer them. I don't know, but I'll tell you, I don't know that. So I'll hook you up with a therapist that does. But so think about questions if your head gets going, and we'll kind of be talking about that. But anyway, so I started in grad school thinking I'm going to go be a therapist. I don't know why. Probably because I had my own healing to deal with, but I was just going to help other people, right? But then when you get in the process, you're like, oh, I really have some stuff I need to work through. That's me. That's my family. I don't love that. And that was the first place I realized, like, oh, I'm the black sheep of the family. And I'm guessing that somebody else in here probably feels that way too. There's a lot of black sheeps that tend to, they get wayward, right? But as I started studying and I got more into like the addiction realm and understanding what's happening in this process, I realized there's a lot of black sheepness. And when you pay attention to family system dynamics, there's like the hero child that's, you know, the great one that can't do anything wrong, the golden one. Then you got like the clown who's funny and brings a lot of humor, right? But then you got the black sheep, that's the problem child, that they always got drama going on, or the parents are always on them, right? But what you'll come to understand when you start looking at families over and over and over again is that the black sheep is actually the only one in the family that actually knows what's going on. Have you guys heard that? Yeah, absolutely. Like, it's 100% true. I'm not just saying that like, I'm a black sheep and make myself feel better. It is true. The black sheep has a hard time wrestling with what might be happening in a family system. Most of the time it's avoidance. We don't know how to talk about hard things. Nobody's teaching us how to verbalize emotions, and no one's validating a painful process for us. Yeah, hey, that wasn't okay that happened to you. No one's really saying that. We don't know how to do that. It's uncomfortable, and so we end up just kind of going through life without a language around emotions. And when we do that for so long and we don't know how to process anything that's coming up, we end up rebelling against a system. And what it looks like is pushing out through behavior. And so anytime you have that, it's kind of like the smoke to the fire. You're like, if you've got rebellion, there is smoke to a bigger fire. So it's not a bad thing. People need to stop like shaming black sheep. You need to bring them into the therapy room and be like, hello, you're the expert of this family. I want your opinion on what's going on, right? And giving space and emotional regulation and some kind of the definitions of what emotions are. If you can give that to a family, you're gonna get health that comes from that, but it usually comes from the black sheep. So you guys do a lot of learning and classwork, right? How much do we know about trauma? That it's a thing? A little bit? People talk about it on TikTok a lot. I'm traumatized, right? Yeah, okay, well. It's a buzzword. Triggered is a buzzword, right? And I think we need to reclaim what those things mean because they are very useful. But I think society, in an attempt to try to understand, has kind of lost meaning of what really happens in the trauma process. So there are different types of trauma, you guys can imagine. There's really like 3 different types of trauma. First type is what we call, have you guys heard of different types of trauma, maybe a little bit? Okay, let's go. First type of trauma is called a big T trauma. Anybody hear about that? Big T trauma is like the trauma that we expect to hear about. So your brother fought in Afghanistan. He hand-to-hand combat, was shot. That's significant, right? There was sexual assault. Somebody lost a baby. There was a car accident. Cancer was diagnosed. I call them like casserole traumas because somebody from the church is going to show up with a casserole. Sorry for your loss. right? These are the ones that no one's gonna doubt something has happened. You don't have to question it, you don't have to explain it. They're like, yeah, that's bad, right? They're the most obvious that you're gonna have. Second type of trauma is what I like to call a toothpick trauma, a little t trauma. These are the things that create pain, but are not super obvious. So if somebody stabs a toothpick in your leg, right, there's gonna be pain, but you're probably not gonna die. And it's easy after a couple of weeks to be like, it's just a bruise, right? It's not that big of a deal. Other people have that. These are gonna be things like losing a job that you always wanted, right? These are gonna be things like not making it into the school that you wanted to get into. These are things that you couldn't provide a certain experience for your kids that you always really wanted to provide, right? No one's gonna be like, oh yeah, that's significant, but it hurts enough, right? And when you get 10 toothpick traumas and 20 toothpick traumas, 100 toothpick traumas, we end up having the potential of bleeding out, right? And these are the ones that society a lot of times they don't pay attention to because they are so little, but if you have a lot of toothpick traumas, little things that affected you and you didn't really know what to do with, that can really add up. And it actually can become more problematic than one's big single, like big T chronic trauma, the casserole trauma that happens, right? So those are really important to pay attention to when you're walking through your story and you're like, what kind of trauma do I have? If it's like, well, that wasn't that big of a deal, or some people had it worse, that's probably a toothpick trauma that we need to pay attention to and kind of look at. Third type of trauma is chronic trauma. This is kind of like a fog that comes down over a city and just kind of hangs there, right? You can see it, but you can't catch it. This is if your dad's an alcoholic, has been for your entire life, and you know exactly what his footsteps sound like when he comes down the hall, and if it's a good day or a bad day, right? Your body knows that something's up, and no one ever has to say a word, right? It's your mom's been into the pills again, or she's lost her job and won't tell anybody, and as a kid, you're like, ooh, I feel something in the atmosphere. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? So your body knows what's going on around us far quicker than our brain does. And so you get those like spidey senses that happen, and you're like, I don't know what's happening in this room, but something's happening here. That comes from recognizing situations around us that we don't know how to put words to, that we may not be able to change. We feel stuck in them, right? It's, I'm stuck with an ADD, right? I don't know how to change this. I don't know how to fix this. I don't know how to do something different, but people keep telling me I need to. Well, I'm stuck, right? This kind of chronic overlay that hangs over a situation. And again, you can't really touch it. It's got problems, but it's hard to really like nail down. Those are the three types of trauma you want to kind of pay attention to: the big T, the little t, and the chronic. Why is it important to understand trauma? Trauma creates reactions, right? Have you ever been in a situation where you're having a conversation with somebody and they react really big and you're like, are you talking to me? What is wrong with you? Why is this reaction so big? What is hysterical is often historical, right? And if you've been in a situation, I know I have, where I've reacted really big and I'm like, why do I feel like this? That was not that big of a deal, but I feel it in my body. It's usually your body telling you, oh, we've been here before, sister. This experience, the way you feel, this helplessness, yeah, hello, we've done this before. But it doesn't come to us when we wake up one morning and be like, oh, I have felt helpless in my life. I felt very alone and isolated. No one was there to care for me. Oh, yeah, thank you for that understanding. It comes through reactions. It comes through being agitated, defensive, fighting. It comes through avoidance. It comes through forgetting what I was saying and just kind of dissociating out, right? And it's not important to really work through trauma unless you want to be able to regulate consistently with the people around you. You want to be present. You want to be able to talk to your kids and feel present with them. You don't want them to feel your anxiety, right? So if you've got to understand your story. You have to understand the pieces of the things that have happened so that you can regulate your experience with other people. You're not living in this hyper-vigilant state of waiting for the next shoe to drop. Does anybody ever feel that way? You're waiting for the pin, you're waiting for something to happen. It's kind of this idea of like foreboding joy. Like, yeah, this is good, I'm doing really well, I've been clean, like everything's going well, but like, I don't know. That's a really hard place to live. It's still a trauma state because you're waiting. And so to have a fully restful spirit, be like, okay, I can kind of be a piece of this, usually involves going through and recognizing where does my reactivity come from, which means we have to dig a little bit, which is why people come to my office and they're like, I don't know why I'm acting this way. And I'm like, probably because you're not crazy and you have a reason, let's go find it, which is not a fun process, but it is the ability, that's what gives us freedom. Gives us the ability to control what's happening to us because we can name the experience that's happening inside of us and how it's affecting the relationships around us, right? So the interesting thing, this is how God is the only creator, right? Nothing else can create. Satan can manipulate and he can destroy, but he doesn't have the power to create, right? So that is the name of the game with Satan when it comes to trauma, is he's going to take a situation in your life that happened to you, right? And he is going to recycle it over and over and over and over again. I'll tell you how this happens. Every time you have a traumatic situation happen to you, right, it leaves us with a shame message about who we are. You get kicked out of school, right? You don't like the traditional schooling, you have a hard time in classes, your teachers think you're bad and you won't sit still, or that you're, dumb and you're not paying attention, and you have this whole struggle with academics, right? You have a whole struggle with teachers and how to regulate at school. All of a sudden, there's this shame message stuck to our kind of personhood about being stupid or being incapable. No teacher sat down and was like, Talia, you're dumb. Right? No one said those words, but through the experiences that we have, we end up collecting this kind of cognition, this negative thinking about ourselves that's like, I don't know how to make sense of what's happening to me. It's got to be that I'm dumb. It's got to be that I'm stupid, right? And unless someone's able to kind of help us go, hey, this school is terrible. Your teacher was super rude. Your way of processing and being educated is different. Let's figure out what works. Sometimes that doesn't happen, and then what happens to that shame message just gets integrated into our person. So we end up putting this lens on that we look at the entire world, and it's about feeling stupid. So every situation I come up to, a new job interview, unless I'm able to flush that experience out and recognize where what shame message is what is coming out for me, I'm going to show up to the job interview feeling stupid and assuming that I'm stupid, right? So I've already disqualified myself because I've got this shame message recycling into other areas of my life, right? So if you take any painful experience that's creating reactivity, or you're feeling anxious or defensive, or you are feeling isolative or dissociating because you don't know how to engage something and you shut down, right? There's a root there of some shame, right? Shame messages always show up in I am statements. You guys are gonna have to help me with some of this. I'm stupid, I'm incapable, I'm not good enough. Worthless, 100%, that's a huge one. Worthless, unlovable, not valuable, unworthy, oh, that one's a big one too. A problem, right. Lazy, too much. Misunderstood, too much, oh, I got that one, growing up all the time. Okay. How about a burden? I'm a burden, right, absolutely. So you guys know them because you're familiar with them, because everybody has them, right? What ends up happening, because Satan is lazy but also very smart, not lazy, we recycle these shame messages over and over again, and we end up picking up the same ones over and over and over and over again. I have found that people tend to have about 3 that loop. Mine are, I do a lot of trauma work. Thanks, Mom and Dad. Love you guys. No, it's I'm not good enough, I'm crazy, and I'm stupid. I can tell you exactly where those come from in my story, and I can tell you how they tried to insert themselves again in my story, but then I can also tell you how I took them on, and I believed them, and I kept applying those shame messages to my story. I'm not good enough, I'm crazy, and I'm stupid, right? So now, every time there is some type of inflammation in my system, I'm defensive, I feel irritated. I always get irritation in my jaw where I'm like trying to smile, but you feel that tension in your neck, right? Or you feel that chest tightness, you feel the kind of bubble gut people get when they get anxious. Your body is about to invite you to explore a shame message, okay? So if you happen to know what they are, because you've been able to kind of trace some of that history back to the root cause of what's going on, the leak in the system, you can go, oh, okay, I know what's happening here, right? Not being good enough and being stupid hits home at work for me, right? I know I'm capable. All the evidence says that I'm a good therapist for the most part, but the second my boss calls, I got that shame message that decides to be like, hey girl, you're not good enough. He's about to tell you that, right? And if I don't know that, I'm gonna start getting defensive. My defense mechanisms are avoidance. I don't know what you're talking about, right? They're gonna be making excuses. I've just been really busy. I know that I'm supposed to do that. I just couldn't because I have all these other things going on, right? What are some of the other types of defense mechanisms? Excuses, avoidance, denial. I don't know. Nope, that didn't happen. Sarcasm? Yes, that is not me at all. Projecting? Yes, right. All the things that you're like, this doesn't feel right, and it's not aligning with what my experience is right now, but it's happening and I can't stop it, right? If you can recognize what your typical defense mechanisms are, everyone's gonna have kind of their set. You can start tracing back, ooh, I got a feeling of not being good enough and feeling dumb, not feeling worthy, feeling like a burden coming up right now. Hold on, let me address what's true, right? But if we don't know how to walk through that process, we're always going to be chasing the avoidance, we're gonna be chasing the defense mechanism, and then we're gonna have to be restoring relationship all the time. And it's awful, right? I don't wanna be in conflict with people. It's uncomfortable, my stomach hurts, I don't like it, I can't sleep at night, I wake up thinking about it. So if I can walk through what's happening in this moment, why am I what is that shame message that's coming up for me? We have the ability to actually be like, okay, hold on a second. Is my boss calling me actually a situation in which he's gonna say, Talia, you're not good enough, or he's gonna be saying that? Chances are very low. I could have done something that might not have been okay. I might need some feedback about something that wasn't great, but the idea that I am not good enough really doesn't add up in this moment. So if I act like it, I recycle the same shame message over again, and then I'm stuck, right? So if I've got the ability to know what's happening in my body, ooh, something's coming up, and I can recognize where one of these shame messages might be coming up, I can then kind of get ahead of the defensiveness, which removes me from relationship. I'm gonna start avoiding my boss's phone calls because I think that he's going to tell me something that I don't wanna hear. Then I remove myself from good connection with people that actually have nothing to say to me that's bad, right? But I don't know that because I can't withstand the feeling of shame that's coming up because I don't even know how to identify it. Does that make sense? That process make sense? So give me an example of a trauma, just basic trauma, maybe like a little t trauma, and we're gonna walk through the shame process. I wanna show you. Little one. Say that? Oh, that's a big one. Little one, okay. All right. So if somebody breaks up with you, I'm guessing they broke up with you, give me some of the shame messages that you might feel in that moment. Unworthy. What else? Ugly. Unlovable. Oh, these are terrible, right? Thanks, Satan. No. Not good enough. Right. Okay. So say that again?
All the body image things.
All the body image things. My body's not okay. I'm not good enough. I'm less than somebody else, right? Like, I am not enough in general, kind of thing.
How long did they know that?
How long did they know that?
That they wanted to break up with you? That would be in my mind.
Okay, so the shame message there would be, how long did they know that? The shame message that gets inflicted is I'm stupid.
Yeah.
I missed something. What does it say about somebody if they miss something? They're dumb, right? So that's the reason why we get to the bottom of it. If I'm asking that question, what is it, and I ask my clients all the time, well, what does it say about you that happened? And I'm not looking for the logical answer because shame isn't logical. It doesn't work in the logic and what makes sense. It works in something much deeper that we don't know how to combat, which is why it lives on and on and on, and it gets recycled over and over and over again, right? And eventually, so the enemy starts inviting us to feel these things, then he doesn't have to invite us anymore because we're like, oh, I'm unlovable, let's go. And we go through the rest of our life feeling unlovable, right? And we gotta check somewhere being like, wait, when did I start agreeing to this? Not only just wearing it, but then agreeing to it. And belief creates its own proof, right? So if I believe I'm unlovable for long enough, I will create situations in which I am unlovable. And then we got a whole other thing happening, right? And so we gotta be able to determine, what am I doing to contribute to this shame message being true in my life? Who contributed to this shame message being true in my life? What situations contributed to the shame message being true in my life? Hold on a second, and do I agree with it? Most of the time, you can go back to the word where it's like, you were wonderfully made, period. And that should cast out every single shame message, but does it work? No, right? So we have to go through the process of breaking it down every single time something's happening. You guys are in a conflict, somebody stole something from the bathroom, your hairbrush is missing, right? Someone's been rummaging through your stuff. What do you feel? Angry, violated, frustrated, helpless, disrespected, right? Okay, so what does it say about somebody who is disrespected? Weak, not valuable. So we got a hairbrush that was missing, and all of a sudden I'm believing the lie that I'm not valuable. How does that connect? It doesn't, but it does, right? You know it does. You're like, oh, this is my life. And I'm like, but when you break it down that way, you're like, How does a hairbrush go missing mean that I am not valuable, that I'm weak? But when you think about it, you break it down, you're like, that's stupid. I'm not gonna believe that anymore. So when you get reactive, you can go, hey, there's been an offense. Somebody stole something of mine. I don't like that. I do feel violated. That's not respectful. But it is not connected to my personhood. Does that make sense? So this is why it's important to go through that process and be like, what is happening in my body? I'm feeling very revenge-driven right now, right? You know when you've got that feeling. When you feel anger, where does it come up for y'all? In your body. Chest, right? Where else? Ears get red. I hear that all the time. I'm like, what's up with the ears? They know. Tongue, the mouth. Jaw. Me too, girl. Say that again. Neck. Eyes. Feel it. Where else? Hands. Stomach. Right. Absolutely. What about anxiety? Throat. Stomach. All the time. Chest. Right. Shoulders. Back. Did you know that you have more neuron receptors that pick up emotions and feelings and the chemicals that go with that in your stomach than you do your brain? Like an amazing amount more. Your stomach picks up on emotional regulation or dysregulation a gajillion times faster. That was science, by the way. A gajillion times faster. I will quote nothing because I'm just making up numbers, but no, it's true. I'm not going to say something that's not true. But it is so much faster. So when your stomach is going, y'all need to trust it. Something's happening, right? Now, it could be old. It could be an old feeling that you're having, and it could be from childhood. It could be from a couple weeks ago. But it's a shame message of being like, oh, hey, I'm here, girl. And I'm going to confuse you. I'm going to make you real defensive. And we're not going to deal with this, but you're just going to feel terrible in your stomach and go to the bathroom a whole bunch, right? Okay, so anger in the face. What about like conflict? When you feel conflict come up, you watch somebody about to throw down. You feel like you're about to get in trouble. The heart beating. Yeah. The heart's beating, right? What else? I get tingly. My hands get tingly. Like I want to run away. Everything goes in slow motion, right? Yo, that's your body preparing for a threat, right? But then we don't want to be like that, so we're like, I'm fine. Or maybe somebody in your life was like, this is not that big of a deal, you're fine. You're like, I don't feel fine. Everything in my body is telling me I'm not fine, right? Family systems that don't know how to deal with emotions, even the basic ones, are like, I'll give you something to cry about. Well, I'm already crying, and no one's helping me, so thank you. That doesn't help at all, right? So it is really, really important. I say all of this because it's really, really important to make sure that you understand how to figure out what's going on in your body. And it takes practice, right? So the next time you're feeling something or you're noticing something, I want you to be like, oh, Talia, that weird therapist was talking about how to notice what's happening in my body, and just stop. I don't know what's going on. I think it's tension. I think it's feelings of fear. Where am I noticing it? My chest, my stomach, my back, my throat's closing up. I don't feel like I can talk, right? Feeling it in my hands, something. Okay, this body reaction I'm having right now is about fear. It's about conflict. Okay, good to know. If your body's going to tell you fast what's happening and your brain doesn't really need to be involved, it's easier to be like, oh, I got fear coming up. I don't know where it's coming, but I'm sensing it, right? It's basically like we're walking down the road and there's a cottonmouth, which is venomous, and going, oh, stop walking. That's a snake, and it's really venomous, and it could put you in the hospital. Oh. We don't react that way. We go, stop, hey, hold on, right? That's how fast our body recognizes emotions. But then we deny it. We're like, I'm fine. And then we go fight with somebody, or we self-sabotage. Anybody have a history of self-sabotaging? Yeah, 100%. We sign up for things that we want to do. I'm going to run that 5K, and then we're like, I can't. We're like, wow, that was really good. Good, right? But we self-sabotage, we run away, we avoid. Who sleeps when they're stressed? Which is good. You can't sleep when you're stressed because you got to engage that feeling. We got to figure out what to do with it. We got to build our window of tolerance to understand uncomfortable feelings so that we can know what to do with it. Nobody in John 3:17 is feel these feelings and be tortured. Although it feels like that sometimes, right? No one's doing that. if you are being asked to stay in a feeling, it's because we need to understand that feeling and we need to understand the limits of it. We need to go, what is happening here? Do not run from these feelings that are coming up. If you don't know how to manage it, go to your journal and be like, I'm writing down that I don't know how to manage this. This is a lot. I feel overwhelmed. This is painful. I don't want to think about the things that are coming up when I sit in this place. The end by now I'm going to go walk around and pretend like this didn't happen. Fine, that's fine. Just engage the process a little bit, right? The more you practice it, the better you get at emotions, and then eventually you're like, something happens in your body and you're like, ooh, there's conflict. I feel conflict. What's happening here? What's going on? Let me take an account. Do I need to take ownership for anything? No, I don't think I did anything. Hold on, body, regulate. You're not in trouble. You're not stupid, Talia. You're not crazy. You're not good enough. Hold on. It gets fast. But it takes being willing to sit in those emotions and notice what's going on in your body first to be able to be like, oh, this isn't about me. This isn't about my personhood. This is, right. Does that make sense? Makes sense? Okay. Let me check my notes because I don't even know where I am. Well, okay. Yeah. Okay, so trauma work, people come to me for trauma work. They're like, I want to do trauma work. And I'm like, no, you don't. No, you don't. Yes, you do. No, you don't. It's the best, worst thing that happens to you, right? Walking into the core of where our shame lives and trying to figure out what happened, right? And what's true and what's not true is where freedom comes from. That's where the Lord sits the most. And a lot of the modern day church doesn't understand this. They're like, if it's not good, it's not God yet. And I'm like, true, very true. The word says that. But we've mistaken the trench, that pit of pain, and we're like, oh, that is gross. Jesus doesn't like that. Let's step over it, right? And that's not where healing comes from. Healing comes from getting down in it and being like, what has happened? What happens? You cannot forgive anything unless you are able to take an account of what is owed, right? You cannot forgive a debt unless you're able to take an account of what is owed. I got a lot of student loans. School is expensive, and I didn't have the cash. So I got a lot of student loans, right? If someone came to me, I was like, Talia, we want to pay your student loans. I'm like, oh, Jesus, okay. Yes. They're going to go, here's a 20. And I'm going to go, oh, thank you. That is not enough, right? Not enough. If they're really going to pay it, they're going to go, hey, how much? Right? They're going to ask me the number. And I'm going to go, it's a lot. And here it is. And they're going to go, here it is, forgiven, right? The same process happens to us when we work through our trauma. People are like, I'm healed. It's fine. No problem. Jesus died on the cross. For me, I'm healed. That is true. But we have to understand what that means for us. We have to take an account of what was owed. What happened in our life? What's the shame that was carried that we are leaving at his feet? The concept of, yeah, I'm going to leave this at his feet makes sense. But how many times have you been like, but I'm going to pick that back up and put it in my fake Louis Vuitton and I'm going to keep on going, right? A million times right here. The only way to do that is to fully understand the weight that's being forgiven, right? So if you are able to sit with your story enough to go, what happened to me? What was painful about this experience? What did it leave me with, right? That's how you take an account of what was owed. Who might have I felt wronged by, right? Why was that painful? Because it left a shame message that said something negative about myself and I don't know how to carry it, right? Unless you guys come from engaged families, which I don't think you want, you did. There's a lot of avoidance in the parent households that you guys grew up in. A lot of stuff happened that nobody talked about. A lot of families don't even have the basic sex talks, right? Where'd you learn about intimacy? My mom threw me a book when I was 15. 15, that's too old, right? A book? Where are these conversations happening, even in the most basic ways? If they're not happening in the most basic ways, they sure are not happening in the heavy ways. Hey, what do we do when we're feeling shame? What do we do when we're not feeling good enough? What does the Lord say? This fly is about to be shamed, but okay. You know what I'm saying? So if you grew up in a household where no one was helping you with the narrative, what the enemy tries to do, right? We're not going to be able to combat it. So you end up here and you're like, nothing is working. I've tried everything. I've been in this cycle 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. I'm done and I can't figure it out. A lot of times it's because we have not gone through the process of being able to unlock what is being forgiven. So we keep picking it back up, right? That's how the enemy works. He recycles stuff. Eventually we recycle it on ourselves. So starting small, this is my challenge to you guys. Y'all journal? Is there a journal? Okay. I want you to start with 5 little T traumas, Don't get into the big crazy ones. You'll end up calling me in the midnight and be like, Talia, you messed us up. We're in our big trauma. And I'll be like, oh, sorry. No, don't do that. 5 traumas, right? Little things that were like, I don't love how that went. I want you to talk about what happened with your emotions. What did it feel like? And if you're like, I don't know, right? That's okay. If you watch somebody else experience that, what might it have felt like for them? If you watch your kid experience that, what do you think they would have felt? Sometimes it's hard to connect to our feelings on behalf of ourselves because no one told us that was okay. Or they told us we were wrong when we did that. Does that make sense? So if we don't know how to connect to our own feelings, I want you to ask, hey, if this happened to you, what do you think you would feel? I'd be angry. I'd feel betrayed. I'd feel unworthy. I'd feel really confused. Okay. Do we remember what it felt like in our body when that happened? Maybe not. Okay. What might have been the shame that was left? What is the shame that I might be carrying? Okay. Then you're like, okay, if I'm gonna work really hard to hide that shame, I don't want anyone to see it, what am I doing with my defensiveness? I grew up thinking I was stupid. I went to this school in California that was like a hippie school, and they didn't teach you how to read and write until a lot later because they were working on your emotional development and artwork, which was beautiful, but when you get transferred out of that type of school into a public school, it's real scary, okay? I got beat up. My school, I used to sing Kumbaya when people got hurt on the playground. It's like, oh, you got hurt. Literally, that's literally what happened. Then I go to this public school and they're like, move. And I'm like, you're rude. I'll sing for you. It's fine. So I don't know if y'all know this, but I was super behind when I got to this school. Nobody tried to put me in this situation on purpose. My dad's job got moved and I got moved around and I was lost. I remember being in that school and everything is so bright, it smells weird, it smells like glue and this lady's perfume. It was really strong, right? And I was overwhelmed and I didn't know what anybody was talking about. I wasn't allowed to watch Rugrats, right? Because Angelica was rude, and so I didn't know what that was, and I felt totally isolated. And I'm in these classes, I'm going through school, I'm getting tutored all the time. I don't know what's happening, I'm in 2nd grade. So right there, enemy's like, you're stupid. And I took it on, and I felt overwhelmed. And it wasn't anybody's fault that I felt that way, it's just what happened. Well, I take I'm stupid with me all the way through school. I'm a little ADD, so that was a hard thing, which validated the stupid thing, right? Didn't know that. It's compounding. Does this feel familiar to anybody? Yeah. Oh, sorry? Okay, yeah. So I get to high school, mom's like, we're just so proud of you, you're gonna go to college. I'm like, I'm telling you I'm going to college, but I'm not going to college. There's no way. There's no way. And I'm like, sure, I'm gonna go to A-State or UCA. I fully in my heart believed there's no way. I felt fraudulent, but I didn't want anyone to know that, right? And so instead of working really hard at school, because I couldn't do it, I felt stupid and it was hard for me. I hate school, hate it. It was not, I don't like it. I'd rather make baskets or talk to people. I hated school. But I didn't want people to know that because I didn't want people to think I was stupid, even though I felt stupid. So I got really good at other things. Dance team, my high kick was on point, right? I was really good at babysitting. I was an amazing nanny. Because you can't be a good nanny and take care of kids if you're stupid, right? Probably, but I didn't think so. So I looked for other ways to make sure I was combating that shame. So I was student body president, loved it. Dance team, babysitting. I was volunteering at the hospital. I don't know, it was a lot, okay? Then I get to college, which I already felt like a fraud, right? I'm in college, I'm like, I'm not gonna make it through college, I'm gonna make it through the first semester. And I'm like, wait a minute, I don't have dance team. I don't have student body president, I can't be a babysitter, right? I'm in classes. How am I going to fight this narrative that I'm stupid, this shame message that I'm stupid? I gotta find things that I'm really good at, and I'm gonna have to super invest in them so everybody looks over here and they don't look here. The problem is, I'm still living my life out of shame if the only way I'm operating is to combat the shame. That doesn't make any sense, right? So I make it through college. I don't know how, right? Because I'm not stupid, right? I make it through college. I end up going to grad school to get a master's, which is literally crazy when you start at 2nd grade thinking I'm gonna run away into the woods and never do school again and be a feral child. This is what I wanted to do in a lot of ways. So I'm in grad school, and guess whose office I'm sitting in? Clay Barty. Y'all, he's my therapist, and we tussle sometimes, okay? I've been my therapist for 10 years-ish, I don't know. Anyway, I'm sitting in Clay Barty's office, and I'm telling him about how I feel like a fraud. I don't know how I got to grad school. How am I gonna be a therapist? How am I gonna help people when I don't know, I'm stupid? And I'm sitting in there and he's doing what Barty does, which is this. Letting me work myself into a tizzy. And then when I stop, he goes, what can I help you with? And I'm like, stuff, I don't know, okay, I don't know, I'm here, right? And I go, and it hits me. I'm like, I don't think I'm stupid. The evidence of my life doesn't suggest that. I don't feel like that's real. How could I be sitting here? How am I going to be a therapist to people and tell them they're not stupid if I can't say that about myself? That's crazy, right? But to be able to then go back and be like, where did this come from? And how have I have absolutely operated in this way. I go, oh, 2nd grade, moving from the hippie school up to the scary school, boom, starts. That's where the enemy said, hey, it was easy, y'all. He didn't have to work at that one. He didn't have to work at that one at all. But it happened over and over again, had some struggles. I took the ACT like 3 times and still only passed with a barely passing grade, I don't know. It got reinforced over and over again, and I took it on myself until I'm sitting in Clay Barty's office going, why do I feel like a fraud? I'm like, this is dumb. This is a waste of the space and energy that the Lord, I'm not even listening to what the Lord said about me. I'm absolutely filtering it through this, yeah, that sounds beautiful and I'm gonna worship about it on Sunday, but like I'm gonna pick this up from the altar and take it back with me. But until I was able to recognize that that's a shame message I'm carrying, it's gonna come with me, right? If I can encourage y'all to pick your 3, start noticing where it comes up again. Yours are gonna be different than mine, but I know I'm crazy, I'm stupid, not good enough. They're gonna be on repeat. And when I feel defensive, one of those is getting triggered. After I got divorced, I was married for 9 years with this guy for 14 years. We get divorced, all of a sudden abandonment starts coming up. I'd never felt abandoned before, but that was a new one, right? So now, I was like, I didn't know that until I started operating out of defensiveness and closing in on relationships, and I was smothering people because I didn't want to feel abandoned. I was like, what is happening, right? That was a new shame message. So now today I gotta be aware that that's the way the enemy plays. They're gonna leave, right? And if I buy into that, I'm gonna put myself in positions where people leave, because belief creates its own proof. You are going to prove to yourself something that you believe. So if you believe a shame message that you don't even know is down there, we got problems, and we're gonna repeat this cycle over and over again. Does that make sense? Does the cycle feel familiar? I've done this before, I've been here before, why can't I get this? Why is this not changing? I've tried everything, it's happening. We got some shame that's undermining the process. Make sense? Y'all with me? Where I'm pulling? Okay. I'm in therapy a couple days ago with this 15-year-old girl. Beautiful. She got her Lululemon on. I'm like, wow, it's real expensive for 15, but that's cool, whatever. Get it, girl. Darling, super darling. I've seen her for the last couple of years. Little socially awkward, but like doesn't know she's gorgeous, but you don't want to tell her because you're like, just stay innocent and cute and like wild, but like kind of nerdy, right? And she had texted me and she said, hey, I need to meet, I got some boy drama. I'm like, okay, she's getting into the boys. Hope this is safe, cool, no problem. So we start talking, and I can tell she's anxious. And I know that anxiety feeling, like, ooh. I know as a therapist when someone's about to say something that's pretty significant. You can feel it in the room. Or maybe that's the Holy Spirit being like, hey, open up, she's about to say something. I'm like, okay, got it, right? She starts talking. She's telling me the story of spending time with this guy, right? She likes him, he's a little pushy. We all know that story. She's trying to set boundaries with him. I want to take things slow. You guys had this conversation before, right? And I'm like, oh gosh, I know where this is going, right? She's anxious, I can tell. I'm like, she's gonna tell me she was assaulted, right? She's gonna tell me that something crossed the line and she's feeling shame around it. Sure enough, she tells me the story, right? And it was on the line of appropriate, not appropriate. Was he pushing boundaries? Did she say yes, no? It's that whole mess, right? Consent, whatever. But she starts saying, I tried to confront him. And he said, you should know the consequences. If you're gonna do that, you're gonna get rumors talked about you, right? And I'm like, I think most of us have some form of that story. Something happened, we didn't like it, and we got told we're crazy. It was your fault, right? In this tiny, tiny little way. And I'm sitting in my office and I'm going, it is 2023. How are we still having the same conversation with these girls? How is the same story that happened to me or my mom or my friends, how are we still having the same conversation? And she's having it brand new. She feels that first pain that, y'all, I'm sure there's people in here that are like, I know that story. And And I'm sitting there and I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. We can do all the TikTok therapy. We can listen to Brene Brown. We can pray. But why is this happening over and over again? I'm still having the same conversation that women 200 years ago were having, 1,000 years ago were having. It's because the shame story doesn't get told. We don't know our shame stories, and we don't know how to pass it down to the next generation. Hey, baby girl, let me tell you what happened, and let me tell you how God restored me. Not just the details of the brokenness I came from, but the shame story that I believed, right? I'm not good enough. I'm unlovable. I'm trash, right? If we don't identify the shame story that's being told in our narrative, we're going to pass that on no matter how clean and squeaky we look, how many days clean we have, right? No matter how wonderful our kids are, how you get a master's degree. It doesn't matter, right? This is why it's so important to understand your story, because what you don't repair, you repeat. And if you don't repair it, guess who's going to repeat it? Your children. Your children. So this can be healed because it can be named. What you name, you can tame, right? That's the biggest thing. So if we know what's happening in our body, we're able to then be like, whoo, we got shame coming up. What's one of my shame messages, right? We can name it. The best place I name it to my husband, which usually involves me taking ownership for being rude, and I hate that, but it's what's necessary. Or my close people, hey, when you confronted me about losing my car keys, I was really overwhelmed that day, and I felt like I was already failing. And when I reacted to you poorly and I blamed you for losing my car keys, it's because I was already in a place of shame, feeling like I just did not have it together. So although I don't like being blamed for losing car keys, I want you to know that reaction came from a place of shame, and I'm sorry for that. Shame dies right there. Then we do it again. Then we do it again. And then we just say it again. And all of a sudden, the narrative that gets recycled from the enemy stops having power because we say it. We know what's going on. We're able to tell people in close confidence, this is the shame that has been assigned to my life and I don't receive it. But that's different than saying, I'm broken. It's going, hey, this is what I've believed and how I've contributed it to my life, how I've taken it on. Does that make sense? That's how we don't have 15-year-old girls in my office saying the same story the 6 generations said, right? Is we've got parents that are like, hey, let me tell you, my kids, we talk about shame. Not because I'm like, I am a therapist and we're going to talk about shame. It's because I know what it's like to carry my parents' shame. And then to be like, I didn't even do the stuff that I feel shameful for. That's what a generational curse is, y'all, right? And if we don't want that, we got to tell the story. We don't have to go out in the street corner and say, these are all the areas that I feel shame, but it's about in these moments when we have reactivity, when I want to fight you, but I don't know why, because I like you. But why am I so offended that we got shame coming up? And to be able to go, my body is telling me that something is happening here. And I need to just stop and trust it, because we're not crazy. I've literally never met a crazy person, y'all, and I've met some people in my office. I worked in the state hospital for a while. Like, there's people don't wake up in the morning and say, it's Wednesday, I want to abuse my kids. That sounds good. I'm going to physically abuse my kids. Yeah, sounds good. You know what? I'm going to completely just disregard my work responsibilities. I'm not going to show up. That sounds good. I like that. I have been told 1,000 times that my mom needs something from me, and I don't care, and I'm not going to do it. That sounds good. Nobody does that. Our behavior looks like that, but nobody wakes up feeling that way. So we've got to ask, why am I in this spot? What's happening here? What makes this make sense if nobody's like, yes, I'm just going to do this, right? That's why telling your shame story is so important. But we got to know it first, which means we have to know our body, we have to know what's happening, and we do have to believe that what I'm feeling shameful for is not assigned to my personhood. It's what is assigned to the situation. And enemy is using it on repeat and recycle. Does that make sense? Over and over and over and over again. I'm not trying to do that. I do enough laundry, rinse, wash, repeat, right? I don't want to do that with a shame story that is literally, it's so small and undermining. And it's hard because it removes us from the quality that we experience with the Lord, truly being able to receive that. When someone says, I love you, but you got some struggles with shame back there, it's really hard to receive it. You go, yeah, but you don't know the truth of me because I'm a fraud. So when we are able to recognize our shame, and we're able to name it, when someone says, Hey, I know your shame message. I love you. You go, well, I got no excuses to receive that love. Thank you. It's easy to push people away and not receive love when they don't know. So we pick safe people. Y'all are the best place to practice it because it's going to come up tonight. Y'all are going to leave here and go to your little cottage, which is beautiful. Something's going to happen. You're going to feel offended. You're going to be like, you're going to leave here. You're going to be like, that therapist was off. Not true. I'm angry, defensive. Shame's coming up. Something's coming up. Let's go. If I'm not crazy and something in my body's happening, let me ask, what shame is coming up for me? What am I feeling about my person? I am what? Remember, it's not going to make any sense. No one's going to have said that to you before. It's just going to come up. Then you're going to go to somebody you care about and say, I was really reactive because I think I have that shame message that lady was talking about. I'm not enough. I'm trash. I'm lazy. I'm unworthy. I'm not valuable. And I just need to name that with you. And you as a buddy are going to go, thank you. Because y'all know that there's nothing that person can say in that moment. You're not trash. You're beautiful. Thank you. That's what our mom said. Mom, I think I'm fat. You're not fat. You're gorgeous. You're a beautiful size. And you're like, okay, thank you, but I still feel fat. So what do I do with that? Right? Y'all know you can't rescue anybody from their shame. The Lord's space. That's where the Lord comes into play. He's going to take care of that. It's your job to go, I'm glad you know that. Thanks for telling me. I appreciate that you trust me. If there's anything you need, I'm here. Good for you. You named it. And you're going to walk to bed and brush your teeth. You're not responsible for anything after that. You're not responsible for telling them that it's not true. You're not responsible for creating a scenario where they feel different. As a therapist, I can't do that. I have no magical powers. Y'all are the expert of your story. You come in here and you say, hey, this is my experience. And I go, okay, I don't know. I wasn't there when you were raised. I wasn't there when he abused you. I wasn't there when you lost your kids. I have no idea. So I go, okay, I trust you. Tell me more. This is how I think it's affecting my life. Okay. I want you to look at this, and this. Okay. Right? I'm not going to tell you anything different that you don't already know or that people don't. Y'all's friends know you better than your therapist does. So there's nothing I can say to make it better. What we need at that moment is to go, I see it. I know it's not true. And I appreciate you telling me that. You got it. Go work on it. Cool. Okay, I went into a deep rabbit hole and I just looked at the time. It's 7:16. I want to be able to stop for some questions or some feelings that might be coming up. Y'all recognize it's not a therapy room, and so I don't know that I will be able to like deep dive into everything, but I do want to check in with you guys. I feel like some people are feeling some stuff that's happening, so I do want to check in. We good with pausing here? Go for it.
Okay, so, how,
Yes.
like, so basically, like, whenever, whenever someone, like, something happens, or, like, if someone feels, like, offended and, like, all that shenanigans, but, like, I just kind of, like, check out, and,
Yes.
like, I don't know how to, like, deal with it, so I don't, and I pretend that it's just, like, not. So, like.
So I want you to ask, what are you scared of? I'm shutting down, I'm dissociating, right? My protective nature is to go, bye, I don't live here anymore. She can't see me, right?
Yeah.
So in that moment, I want you to stop and go, I don't have to do anything about it. You don't have to do anything about it, but go, what am I scared of in this moment? Most of the time, you're gonna come down to hitting a shame message. I'm scared that I'm gonna be confronted with the fact that I'm rejectable, that I don't know what to do and I feel helpless, that I'm lazy and that someone's gonna tell me that I'm a fraud, right? That I'm unworthy and that I can't be in relationship. That frozenness is a protective measure. You're not crazy. It's your body going, ooh, no, I got you, girl. We're not gonna engage in this. So in that moment, you don't have to do anything. People think that when they notice, I should not avoid things. Let me engage them. I'm like, nah, God, too much. Pump the brakes. No. You know what I love is people say, Talia, I hate conflict. Everybody hates conflict. We are designed to be in community. People feel shame because they don't like conflict because it's uncomfortable. That's ridiculous. God designed us to be in fellowship and in community. So if we feel conflict, it's a threat to that. It removes us from community. So when people say, I have shame for feeling like I don't like conflict, I'm like, welcome, you should not like conflict. We shouldn't run from it because it stops us from the healing process. But that doesn't mean we like it, we sit. If you feel that feeling coming on, you take a deep breath. You can't totally dissociate if you're doing deep breathing. I don't have to do anything. I don't have to engage. I don't have to lean in and feel the shame. I'm just going to go, what am I scared of right now? I don't even know what it is. Hold on. And if that's your answer, I don't know. And you're just able to sit there for a second, okay. The next time it happens, you're going to be able to go a little bit deeper. I don't know, but I felt this before. When did I feel this last time? The last time this happened? I felt this a lot as a kid. What was going on then? You'll get to expand. The next time it happens, oh, this feeling is coming back. I feel like I'm evaporating into thin air, right? I felt this before. We've talked about this. I don't really know what this is about. She asked me to ask what I'm scared of. What am I scared of? I don't really know. This is uncomfortable. I don't like conflict, okay? We're gonna pay attention to what's happening in your body, and we're gonna start just giving it space, right? So we journal. That thing happened again, where I blanked out and dissociated and didn't know what was going on. It's happened twice this week. I wonder if I'm stressed. What might I be stressed about? You gotta get curious about your experience. But a lot of times we don't get curious because we're like, I don't like this, bye. And we leave. You can sit in it for a little bit and be like, why? What's happening right now? What might be triggering me to feel scared and to need to get out of here? Does that make sense? It takes practice. Y'all aren't gonna wake up tomorrow and be like, y'all, I got my shame messages. Let's talk about it in a group. You're gonna be like, I think I got one of them, maybe two, but I don't know how they come up. And y'all be like, I know how they come up. You're really rude. Oh, okay. I know how they come up. You always seem to disappear when conflict happens. Oh, okay. Hey, I know how they come up. You tend to make a lot of excuses when you're feeling that way. Oh. We think we're hiding shame. Everybody knows. It's horrible. But if you can go to people you trust, not people you don't like, and if you have conflict with somebody, don't tell them their shame messages. Leave it alone. That's not your safe place. But if you got somebody you trust, you can be like, I think one of my shame messages is that I'm crazy. Do you see any way that that might represent itself in my life? Please be kind. Yeah, I do. Be gentle. This is a refining process. Be gentle. If you don't trust somebody, don't ask them about your shame messages. Do it safely in your journal until you feel comfortable. Or go to somebody who might know about that process a little bit more. Chris knows this. You can go to Chris and she'll be like, I don't know, I have to go to Talia. I'm like, Chris, do your shame message work more. Right. Okay, what else?
I'm dealing with guilt.
Guilt.
Responsibility.
Feeling guilty for responsibilities. The cool thing about guilt is it's not bad. Guilt is I've done something bad. Shame is I am bad. Make sure you know the difference. So in a moment when you're feeling that gross feeling, are you feeling that I am bad? Or are you feeling that I've done something bad? Right? Okay. Shame will work on. Guilt. Sometimes we're guilty. If I murder someone tomorrow and I go to prison, and then I serve my time for 25 years and I get out, am I still guilty of murder?
Yeah.
Yes, because I murdered somebody, right? But I've paid my dues, but I still feel guilty. It's okay. Guilt happened. It's just a position in which we've taken. If there's something we need to do to rectify it, like serve my time, I'm gonna serve my time. Guilt doesn't have to go away to mean that you're doing okay. I need to do paperwork. I feel guilty about that. If I go do it, I will stop feeling guilty. But then there's gonna be more paperwork that happens because I have more sessions and I'm gonna feel guilty again because I'm like, oh, I need to do paperwork. It doesn't have anything to do with me. If there's something I can do to make that guilt feel better, take care of my responsibilities, own them, recognize that they need to happen, I can serve my time and do that. If I feel guilty and I don't engage doing anything, I bet we actually have shame. Shame stops the healing process. Guilt doesn't do anything to a healing process. You can heal after murdering somebody. You can do that, right? Oh, you murdered somebody? Well, you're done. We're gonna murder you. Bye. That's not how that works. So you can be guilty and still be healing. You can be guilty and still be healthy. What happens if that guilt stops me from engaging those responsibilities well and doing something about it, taking care of my business, going to do my paperwork? If I stop doing that and I'm stuck, I bet we have shame locked in. Does that make sense? Guilt's not bad feeling. Guilt's just a position. It can trigger us to do the right thing. If I feel guilty, it means I probably need to take ownership somewhere. But most of y'all were probably raised in families that told you you were responsible for stuff that you were not responsible for. Mom's emotions, dad's emotions. Who raised siblings? Y'all were not responsible for that. You're not a parentified child. It's okay to take care of people, but it's not your responsibility. So are you a caretaker? You nurture people? No? That's exactly what happens. If I was forced to raise siblings, I'm either going to do the exact same thing or I'm going to do the same opposite and be like, y'all on your own, get out of here, right? Trauma does one of two things, the same exact thing that happened to us or the exact same opposite. If my dad beat me, I beat my kids. Or my dad beat me and I don't discipline my kids at all. Same problem, different sides of the spectrum. Does that make sense? Well, at least I'm not like my parents. I did the complete opposite. I'm like, which means you're going to be kind of like your parents, but in the opposite way, right? The middle ground, that gray ground is what we're looking for. So guilt's not the problem. Make sure you're doing something. Take your ownership. If guilt's there, you might be guilty. That doesn't mean the healing can't happen. But if it gets stuck, we might have a shame issue. I don't deserve better, so I can't do better. That's a lie. This is not about deserving. Okay, she's waving me. Okay, I'm sorry.
No, wait, wait, ask a question.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I think a lot of people might want to hear. So, I know that part of my healing, really, I had to take ownership of where, not only what was done to me, but what I did. And so, I think just about the taking ownership part, whether it be, stealing some girl's hairbrush, or what I did, what I did in my past, or, being a prostitute, or selling my body, or whatever the case may be, taking that part of the ownership, even though it was horrible to take that part of the ownership, I was able to heal from what was done to me because of that. So I know all these girls write a life story, and so when you write your life story, make sure that you take ownership of what you did, don't always just be the victim, but also, because most of us have done some stuff too that we need to take ownership for. And so anyway, when I first went to Talia's office, it was a lot of these men did this to me, and this is what happened to me, and where did my life go, and all this stuff. And it was the point when I took the ownership of, well, ownership. So the ownership of what I did, of what I did in this situation.
That's that part of how have I subscribed to the shame.
Yeah.
It's been put on me. Now how am I putting myself in positions that repeat that shame message, which is gonna look like hurting myself, hurting other people, not being honest and true, working the system, right? I think you're 100% spot on. We have to take an account of what is owed by taking a full account of what has been painful, how it has applied to our life, and then we have to be able to go, how have I agreed to this, and what am I doing to continue agreeing to this, right?
So is it normal to have like extreme anxiety when you're taking ownership of things?
Yes, it's horrible.
Because I was in the office the other day with my mentor, and I yelled at her and another staff saying, I don't want to feel this right now, crying and feeling it at the same time. And
It's pretty good.
that's what happens every time it happens. So does it stop?
It does stop. This is people say, Talia, I can't cry in your office because if I start crying, I'm what? Not gonna stop. I've never seen it. People always leave my office.
It makes me feel like I want to throw up.
Yes, your body is rejecting the experience. You're gonna do two things. Do exactly what you do. I don't wanna feel this and I don't like crying and this is really uncomfortable. You're verbalizing it. I don't like this. We're gonna take the ownership. We're gonna go to a safe place. Hey, I'm okay, I'm safe. So much of that feeling is about a threat. You're about to be abandoned. You're unlovable and everybody's gonna leave you. You're gonna die, right? Your body does not know the difference between a perceived threat and a real threat. Does not know. So our body responds as if we got a bear coming at us. So when you're crying and there's that emotion that's happening, it's because your body's like, we're gonna die! This is gonna kill us! But your brain is like, we're literally just in Suzanne's office taking some ownership for something. But your body doesn't know that, right? Your body does not know that. So to be able to go, body, I recognize you think you're gonna die. I'm gonna say it. I think I'm gonna die. I'm gonna let the feelings come out, because feelings are feelings. People say all the time, Talia, I shouldn't have this feeling. And I'm like, who told you that? Feelings just come up. There is no way to control. I'm just not gonna feel angry. Good luck. Don't think about a zebra. What are you thinking about? Zebras, right? Feelings are not the problem. You cannot control them. So to be like, say it. The action is where the problem comes out. It's the yelling at somebody. It's cussing at somebody. It's no, I'm not. I would have. If my anger got out of control, that's probably what I would be taking ownership for. No, you didn't. But it's the action. The feeling is not the problem. It's the action. So don't be judging. I shouldn't feel this way. I'm like, good luck with that, right? Okay, couple hands. Look, first, then second.
Okay, she was talking about guilt. What would you tell someone like me that, okay, went through some trauma when I was 6?
Mm-hmm.
I'm 56 in a few days. 50 years, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of life stories, ever since I've written my life story, I've been going through some survivor guilt. What would you
Survivor guilt.
survive?
You survived a situation. Somebody else endured it. You didn't endure it. Right. Okay. Ugh. That one's hard.
My best friend get run over by a car.
God.
Right in front of me.
Absolutely.
And anyway, if we would have gone not for my way, it would have been me. But it's for her way, it was her.
That's a complicated feeling because it's like I'm glad I'm alive, but I don't know if I can have that feeling because that, for some reason, feels like I should be glad that she's gone and that I'm alive. It's very complicated, right? Part of being able to own the truth is both points. This is the good about that situation that I can see, that I'm thankful for, that I'm grateful for, that I understand what happened, that I'm sick, that I don't know how. This is the part that I'm wrestling with, right? I don't know. At 6 years old, do you have kids?
Oh,
You got a grandbaby?
I got one grandbaby.
Okay, I want you to think about telling your grandbaby. Grandbaby had that experience, right? What's her name? His name?
His name is
Hudson. I want you to think about what it would be like to tell Hudson that he should have a hard time surviving, feeling the survival's guilt. Hey, you survived. You should have a hard time feeling that way. You couldn't do it. You couldn't do it. So if you can't do it to your grandbaby, we got to ask the question of, why would I be able to do it to myself? I feel unworthy. I felt broken and unvaluable anyway. So it would have made sense that I was the sacrifice, right? You got a shame message coming up that probably started before 6, right? Survival's guilt is very complicated. You got to tread lightly on that one because with our 56-year-old brain, the adult mind, we're going back into a 6-year-old and saying, hey, that man abused you. You shouldn't have gone to that room with him. You were 6. How are you going to stop a grown man? How do you know? How are you responsible for knowing what was going to happen? Well, I should have told someone when you were frozen and your body couldn't move because you didn't know what to do because an adult was hurting you. How do you apply an adult mindset to a child's experience? But if you can't say the same stuff that you say to yourself to your baby, I'm going to ask you to find the shame message because you are disqualifying yourself from receiving the same care. Baby, that is not your fault. But if I can't say that to myself, it's because I'm believing that I'm not worthy of that redemption. And we got a problem. Okay, 7:30. No, you got a question, then we'll be done.
I want to know, like, when I have a prayer come up, anxiety, mine's so bad that it would put me into the I'll seas. I'll be shaking like this. Like, I don't like that. What is that?
That's terrible. Nobody should like that. Bad. What is it?
Yeah.
It's called a somatic response. Somatic means body. Your body is responding to anxiety, right? Do you know, how do you get out of it? You just wait for it to like pass? That happens.
I try to walk or try to take deep breaths and try to catch it before it comes. Sometimes I can feel it when it comes up. It could be a line thought sometimes. And I just start like this.
Physically seizing.
And it's scary.
It is scary. Does it feel like you're gonna die?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Because your body's telling you, you're gonna die. You're not. Has anyone gone to the hospital with a panic attack? They hook that EKG up to you, and they're like, honey, you're fine. And you're like, I am not fine. I just wet the bed. What do you mean? What is happening? Right? And they go, your heart looks normal. You're like, there's literally no way. I feel it everywhere, right? That's how crazy that somatic response is, right? Part of it is we don't want to just be like, all right, here, let's feel it. Because that, you literally think you're going to die, right? Your brain can't do that. Little bitty pieces when it starts to come up and you start noticing the tingle. I want you to go, hey, hold on a second. Hey, I'm at Remmel, which is a very safe place, right? I'm at 317, I got people, hold on a second, what's going on for me? What am I feeling is coming at me that I would have to react to, right? Take a second, I'm gonna do my deep breathing, but what's happening? A lot of times we get into the physical feeling, we're like, I'm having a physical feeling, and I'm like, I know, but why? And we go, I don't know, and I'm like, look around, there's a bear chasing you. Oh, that makes sense. No wonder I'm feeling anxious and my body's responding. What would make me feel like I needed to be anxious right now? Is it hysterical? Is it historical? Is it something old? Did I get triggered and I'm feeling unsafe right now? Let me take a deep breath. If we can just practice in tiny, tiny ways, y'all can dip your toe into it and then come right back out and act crazy again. Nope, I'm gonna think about my shame. Nope, done with that. Okay, cool, right? But if you can make the period of how you stay in it a little bit longer before you come out, and then we go a little bit longer before we come out, all of a sudden you're gonna be standing there and Jesus is gonna be like, hey, I've been asking you to come down here for a long time. I've been waiting for you to sit. And I wanna tell you what the truth is about this mess. And you're like, I couldn't even shine a flashlight. I don't wanna be in here at all. But when we practice stepping into it, because we know that that's gonna be how we name our shame, and that's gonna be how we don't pass it to our kids. If you don't do it for yourself, do it for the next generation, right? Then you're gonna go, Jesus is gonna be like, hey, this is not what I planned for you, and this shouldn't have happened to you. I'm gonna sit with you in this moment while you're like, I'm not gonna pick up this anymore. This is not the shame. I'm not gonna do this repeat, recycle kind of situation. We gotta practice though. When you feel it at low areas, starts tingling, something is happening. I'm feeling something, I feel threatened. If you can spend 5 seconds going, I don't know, something's happening. You can still go into the full body response and panic. It's gonna take time to practice that, but if in 2 seconds you can go, something's happening. It's your friend sitting next to you going, that therapist said you need to think about what's happening right now, why you feel threatened. You're gonna wanna punch her. But then the next time it's gonna get a little easier and a little easier. Does that make sense? Okay, I know I gotta stop. I hope this was helpful. Everything that I said to you applies to my story. Therapists cannot take clients anywhere. They can only take their clients as far as they've gone themselves. So if there's something that I'm gonna ask you to do, it's because I had to sit in that trench. It's a different trench, it was a different story, we got different trauma, but the process of identifying shame is the same for everybody. So y'all all know how to kind of do this now. It's gonna be a language that you can use together. Be kind to one another, and when you do it terribly, which you will tonight, somebody will, we're like, okay, let's back up and try that again, not a big deal. Journal, 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 journal. When you don't know what to do, you start journaling and you get that stuff flushed out. So one of the best ways to be able to process and get some of those shakes out. If you do it consistently, you'll watch your levels kind of come down and your awareness. One last thing, when you are anxious, when you are in conflict, when you feel threatened, do you know what happens to your brain? You drop almost 20 IQ points. Y'all ever been in the shower? I should have said that to her. I can't believe I didn't bring that up, that's a perfect point. When we are in conflict and our body is in fight or flight, we literally get dumb. We get stupid. That's not the time to be like, let me really work through my shame. You're dumb, and your body thinks you're gonna die. So to be able to have already worked this stuff out when you're not stressed, and you can start looking at this stuff and go, ooh, I think this is one of those moments, and I've done this work around here. Hold on a second. Don't try to do this work when you're threatened, because you're dumb. And then 3 days later, you're in the shower, and you're like, oh, I could have won that argument if I had just thought about it. Well, you didn't, because you were feeling stressed. So do this work when you're not stressed. Start pinpointing it now when you feel okay. You're like, Talia, I just got okay. Why am I going to wreck shop? Do it. Because in the moments when you're not okay, you're going to have more control and power, and your relationships are going to get better, and we're going to stop the generational stuff. Make sense? I'm going to stop talking now because we can go forever, but I'm extremely proud of you. I'm hoping that you guys will be able to utilize this. If you have questions, send them through Chris. I got an email. Y'all can email me. I'm super terrible at responding on time, so don't be offended. But I will get back to you if you need anything.